Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping right into a situation that's, well, literally unfolding beneath our feet, or at least beneath the feet of Icelanders on the Reykjanes Peninsula.
Absolutely. It's a dynamic spot, always keeping scientists on their toes.
And for anyone following this, it's this constant mix of the expected and the completely unexpected. We've been looking at the latest update, the Iceland Volcano Reykjanes Peninsula Eruption Watch report. This one's from June 18th, 2025.
Right, and it features some key insights from Benedict Ofiksson over at the Icelandic Meteorological Office. He heads up deformation measurements there.
Exactly. So our mission for you today, listening in, is to kind of cut through the noise. There's a lot of data, day-to-day updates, but we want to uncover this really interesting paradox in this latest report. It seems the slower things get, the more urgent the warnings might become.
It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it?
It really does. So we're going to try and understand what's actually happening beneath the surface there and what it really means for a potential eruption.
Let's dig in.
Okay, so the core finding, according to Benedict, is that the situation is, quote, relatively unchanged. Now, you and I know when talking volcanoes, unchanged doesn't exactly mean quiet, does it?
Not at all. Especially not in this context. It's more like the pattern is holding steady, even if that pattern involves ongoing processes.
So what does relatively unchanged really signal here, particularly thinking about that land rise under Svartsengi? That's always the key indicator, right?
It is, and that's where the nuance comes in. Benedict's team, they're tracking this ground movement, the deformation, very closely. And he notes they still see land rise under Svartsengi that is slowly and steadily decreasing.
Oh, decreasing, okay.
But so slowly that no major changes are seen over a period of several weeks. So it's not stopping. It's just easing off very, very gradually.
Like letting your foot ease off the accelerator, but you're still moving forward?
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah?
Think of it maybe like a pot on the stove. It was boiling rapidly. Now it's just simmering.
Ah, okay. The heat's still on, but it's not about to boil over right now.
Precisely. It tells us the magma system beneath is still active. It's still being fed, but maybe it's found a sort of slower rhythm for the moment.
Right. So if it's simmering down, slowing like this, does that push back the timeline for an immediate eruption? What does Benedict's team think this suggests, time frame-wise?
Well, based on this specific behavior, this slow, steady decrease, which is, different from the really rapid inflation they saw before previous events, Benedict's projection is actually that an event is still expected, but, quote, at the earliest this autumn.
Autumn. Okay, so that gives a sort of longer-term forecast based on these current slower trends. The system's maybe taking its time building up pressure for the next big release.
That seems to be the interpretation of the current trend data, yes. A longer cycle this time.
Okay, autumn. Got it. But then, this is the part that really caught my eye. Benedict completely flips the script. He stresses the Met Office is not assuming the system is, on pause until the autumn. He says very clearly that all reactions are focused on the possibility of an eruption starting as early as tomorrow. Tomorrow. How do you reconcile that with an autumn forecast?
And that's the absolute crux of it, isn't it? Managing these incredibly powerful, unpredictable natural systems. That tomorrow possibility, it's striking because, as Benedict himself points out, it would actually be quite inconsistent with how the system has behaved before.
So inconsistent. They're basically preparing for something unlikely based on past form.
Exactly. You could call it preparing for a low probability, high consequence event. A black swan, maybe.
Wow.
Their preparedness isn't just based on the most likely scenario derived from current trends. It has to encompass the possible, even if less likely.
So it's not about pinpoint prediction, it's about readiness.
Absolutely. That's why they maintain that constant 24-hour shift monitoring. They need to ensure their detection systems are absolutely primed, in good condition, as he says, to catch any sudden deviation, any anomaly that doesn't fit the slow trend.
Because the Earth doesn't always follow the script.
It rarely does. Perfectly. There are always uncertainties. They have to be ready for the unexpected, even if the odds seem low based on the current slowdown.
So let's wrap our heads around this. We've got this slow, steady land rise suggesting, okay, maybe autumn for the next event.
Based on current trends, yes.
But at the very same time, constant, round-the-clock readiness for an eruption that could potentially happen tomorrow.
It's a fascinating paradox.
It really is.
Yeah.
What does this tell us then? What's the big takeaway for someone trying to understand this?
I think this deep dive really shows you how complex scientific monitoring is in practice. It's this constant balancing act. You're looking at long-term geological trends, the slow simmer you mentioned,
Right.
but you absolutely cannot ignore the immediate, maybe low probability, but potentially very high impact possibilities, a tomorrow scenario.
So knowledge isn't just predicting what will happen.
No, not entirely. It's also about understanding the full range of what could happen, however unlikely, and being meticulously prepared for it. It really speaks to the caution needed when you're dealing with forces this powerful and ultimately unpredictable.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it leaves us with a pretty provocative thought, doesn't it? When we engage in this kind of constant vigilant monitoring of something like a volcano, are we truly anticipating Earth's rhythms, getting ahead of them, or are we maybe just reacting, hyper-reacting almost to its unpredictable shifts moment by moment?
That's a deep question. How does it change how we think about geological time versus our human timescale?
Yeah.
Especially when tomorrow is always technically a possibility on the table.
Something to definitely chew on. Until next time, stay curious.